When Harry Potter attends Hogwarts, we see his Defense Against the Dark Arts professor constantly get swapped out. Year after year, someone new comes in to fill the position. Each professor brings a different type of knowledge to the table, but also various challenges to overcome. However, the trend of this rotating professors started long before Harry arrived at Hogwarts. Hey everyone, Cassandra here. Have you ever wondered how the Defense Against the Dark Arts, or DADA, curse works? We know that no teacher lasts longer than a year, but each person leaves for a different reason. What is the driving force causing so many people to depart from the role? Well, today we're going to break it down. Let us dive in and uncover the secret behind the Defense Against the Dark Arts curse. Before Voldemort became the leader of a group of dark wizards, he was known by another name, Tom Riddle. Full of ambition and self-assurance, young Tom started collecting followers while attending Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Immediately after graduating, he would ask Headmaster Armando Dibbit for the job of teaching the Defense Against the Dark Arts class. It's often believed that he wanted the job to stay where he felt at home, gain more followers, and learn further what secrets Hogwarts hold. Regardless of the reason, he didn't get the job, as Dibbit told him he was too young and maybe to try again in a few years. So he began working at Borgin and Burke's, a shop that dealt in unusual and ancient magical artifacts. One day, while on an errand for the shop, he came across two of Hogwarts artifacts in the home of Hepzibah Smith. He had to have them, and so he did. He would poison her, take the items, and cover up what he had done. Even with covering his tracks, he still went on the run from the life he was living. He would spend the next several years traveling and diving more into the dark arts. 10 years would pass from that fatal day at Hepzibah Smith's house, and Tom Riddle would return to Hogwarts to try again for the position of Defense Against the Dark Arts professor. Albus Dumbledore was now the headmaster and knew that Tom Riddle, a distorted version of the boy he used to be, was not actually interested in teaching. Dumbledore, like Dibbit, would reject Riddle from the position. This was the moment the curse began. Whether you believe that the curse was meant so no student could get a proper education on defensive magic, or that the school would run out of options until it considered Tom Riddle worthy of the position, one thing is true. No one would last longer than a year as the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor. So why is it that professors only last a year? The answer is secrets. Voldemort, a dark wizard who lived in secrecy, left a curse to unveil the secrets of those who would take the position he wanted. One way or another, an event will unfold and they will be exposed for something they have kept hidden. It could be something they have done or part of themselves they wanted to hide from the world. Regardless of the exact nature of the secret, it will cause enough harm for them to be gone within a year. In the course of the series, we come across a total of 7, possibly 8, who were impacted by the curse. Let's take a look at their backgrounds, any hidden secrets they may have, and explore how the curse ultimately resulted in their departure from the role of the DADA professor. In Harry Potter's first year at Hogwarts, his DADA professor was Professor Quirrell. Originally a Muggle studies professor, Quirrell would take some time off from teaching to go on a grand tour. He wanted to find whatever remained of Voldemort, partly out of curiosity, but also partially due to his desire for importance. He fantasized that he would be the one to track down where Voldemort was, and maybe even in return get to learn enough skills from him to never be thought of as a joke again. You see, Quirrell was picked on in his youth. He was a very timid and delicate child. While very gifted, he would still develop feelings of inadequacy. These feelings led to his interest in the dark arts. He didn't want to be insignificant. He wanted the world to notice him. Quirrell would go on to find where Voldemort was hiding. Being naive in his mission, he would become possessed by the Dark Lord. Becoming completely subjugated by Voldemort's will, he would follow any of his orders. Quirrell's secret wasn't that he was harboring Voldemort, though that was a symptom of it. His secret was that he had an inferiority complex. He believed he wasn't good enough, strong enough, or talented enough. If he had stayed in his comfort zone of Muggle studies, maybe Nicholas Flamel and his wife wouldn't have had to give up eternal life. When there was a chance to become the DADA professor, Quirrell finally thought he would stand up for himself. This is why he went on his grand tour before the school year even started. If he believed more in himself or his abilities, he probably wouldn't have let Voldemort share his body. Even Peter Pettigrew didn't let Voldemort do that to him. Now, with Voldemort attached to him, he spends the year trying to find a way to bring Voldemort back to full power on his own. But here's the thing. Dumbledore would have known Quirrell as a student. He knew what he was capable of. When he gives him the position, I'm sure he didn't think it would turn out like it did, but Dumbledore did knowingly hire him for a cursed position. Knowing his inadequacies would either put him back in his place or completely eliminate him from the school. I mean, why would you want a professor who is getting a little bit too interested in the dark arts and already isn't a great teacher? So when whispers of Quirrell wanting to steal the Philosopher's Stone began, Dumbledore sets up protections to keep it safe. The only real protection was that it was placed in the Mirror of Erised. Quirrell wouldn't be able to retrieve it. His intentions weren't pure. The other traps leading up to it were for Harry and his friends to teach them about working together and depending on each other. Yet it still takes Quirrell pretty much the entire school year to figure out how to get past them all, and he even set one up. If he was more confident, he could have just asked Hagrid directly about Fluffy. It's not like Hagrid wouldn't love to talk about a beloved creature to a fellow colleague who is also protecting the stone. Unfortunately for Quirrell, his departure from the DADA position was by death. His death was caused by going up against an 11-year-old boy. Granted, the boy was Harry Potter, but he was a grown man who thought he wasn't talented or strong enough, and his downfall showed that to everyone. To top things off, his death was just brushed under the rug. The Ministry wasn't even involved. It's like he never existed. You think if a professor died in Hogwarts by mysterious circumstances, there would at least be an article about it in the Daily Prophet. But no, Quirrell was just forgotten about. In Harry's second year, the DADA professor was Gilderoy Lockhart. From the moment Lockhart learned he was a wizard and his two sisters weren't, his vanity blossomed. When he was 11 years old and arrived at Hogwarts for the first time, it was not what he expected. He thought that he was already a fully fledged hero and genius. In reality, he was just an unknown student with unexceptional talents. He would, however, do well enough in classes. He did have one problem, though. If he wasn't the first or the best, he didn't want to bother. Lockhart then focused on shortcuts and how to dodge things. He valued knowledge, not for his own sake, but for the attention it would bring him. After graduating from Hogwarts, Lockhart began traveling to search for something impressive. He honed his talents into perfecting memory charms that he would use to steal stories. He found those who had gone on grand adventures outside of Britain, witches and wizards who have saved people or did extraordinary things. With his ability to modify their memories, these stories would become his stories. He would return home a hero, someone who was daring and brave. When the DADA post opened up, Dumbledore approached Lockhart with an offer to return to Hogwarts as a teacher. Dumbledore knew that he was a fraud, as he knew two of the wizards he stole the stories from. However, he kept the secret to himself. Confused by his choice, McGonagall asked him about his decision, and he said to her, "There is plenty to be learned even from a bad teacher. What not to do, how not to be." So, Lockhart would say yes to joining, only after hearing that the boy who lived Harry Potter would be one of his students. After years spent only focusing on memory charms, Lockhart was rusty on every other kind of magic. This became very clear to teachers and students around him, but he kept up his front. When the Chamber of Secrets is opened and Ginny Weasley is taken down there, he finally finds himself in a position he can't charm his way out of. It's pretty obvious that Gilderoy's secret was that he was a big fat fraud. Dumbledore knew he was a fraud, so why not use the curse to expose what he's been doing for years? Two of his friends had their stories and memories stolen. I can't say for sure how long Dumbledore knew that the curse would expose people's secrets, but we know that this makes twice now he did it for some kind of benefit. Now, when Dumbledore hired Gilderoy, he didn't expect the events leading to the Chamber of Secrets being opened would happen. He would have assumed that Gilderoy's inability to teach anything in his classes would be good enough to expose him as a fraud. And as a bonus, it would teach Harry that fame isn't everything. In time, it became clear that Gilderoy was not capable of doing anything he wrote about, and now the Chamber of Secrets is opened. The other Hogwarts professors were fed up with him at this point and not so gently encouraged him to take care of it for them, but they really just wanted to get rid of him so they could devise a real plan. This could have been the moment that the curse was in full effect, because when he left the room with the other professors, he started packing his belongings to leave Hogwarts for good. But Good old Harry Potter and Ron Weasley stopped in, which allowed the curse to dig its claws in a little bit more. Harry and Ron thought they could help by telling Gilderoy where the entrance to the chamber was, but when they arrived, he was almost done packing. After a bit of back and forth, Harry disarms him and forces him to join them to save Ginny Weasley from the monster in the Chamber of Secrets. This is when the final slap from the curse happens. Down in the tunnel, Gilderoy steals Ron's broken wand to try to wipe his and Harry's memory and leave Ginny to die. Modifying memories was his bread and butter, but this time it failed him. He ended up wiping his own memories by mistake. You can't teach defense against dark arts if you're rusty on magic, but you definitely can't teach it if all your memories are gone. The curse claims another victim. In Harry's third year, the DADA professor was Remus Lupin. Remus was the only son to a wizard named Lyle and a muggle named Hope. As a child, he was attacked by the werewolf Fenrir Greyback. This attack, which was meant to be fatal, was due to Greyback wanting to seek revenge against Lyle for trying to convince the Ministry members he was an unregistered werewolf who just killed 2 children. Lyle heard the attack start in the middle of the night and was able to cast enough curses at Greyback that he left. But now his son Remus was forever a werewolf. The Lupin family kept this all a secret and would uproot their lives and move any time rumors started in town about Remus's behavior or looking peaky near a full moon. This would make Remus a very lonely child. As he grew and became stronger in his werewolf form, the family thought he would never be able to go to school with the other children, and Lyle would need to homeschool him. However, one day, Albus Dumbledore showed up at their door. He had heard what Greyback had done through one of his many spies. Dumbledore explained that many precautions and safety measures he had taken to put in place to allow Remus to have the typical wizard childhood experience of attending Hogwarts. He was thrilled at the thought of meeting other children and making friends. He quickly befriended fellow Gryffindors, James Potter and Sirius Black. Later, Peter Pettigrew would join the trio since Remus was always friendly to him. Remus would become the conscience of the group. However, some behaviors of James and Sirius, such as bullying fellow student Severus Snape, Remus would turn his head because he was just grateful that they accepted his friendship and didn't want to ruffle feathers. Yet this bullying went too far once, when Sirius tricked Severus into going through a secret passage to where Remus, unknowingly of this plot, was in his werewolf form. James stops Severus before he gets hurt, and Dumbledore helps to hush up the situation to protect Remus's secret. After graduating, Remus and his friends would join the Order of the Phoenix to help fight against the rise of Voldemort and the terror he and his Death Eaters were causing. One night, Voldemort would attack and kill James and his wife. Their son, Harry Potter, would become the boy who lived. As the wizarding world was celebrating, Remus would fall into sadness. He lost 4 friends that night. James and Lily, but also Sirius, who is now locked up in Azkaban, accused of crimes we would later find out were all false, and Peter Pettigrew, who only had a finger left behind. Now, all alone again, Remus would live a secluded life, taking jobs far below his talent. Dumbledore would find him again to change his life and invite him to return to Hogwarts, this time as a teacher. Remus's secret had many layers, and of course, Dumbledore knew parts of it. His secret was that he was a werewolf. Like I said, Dumbledore knew this part and probably understood that it made him feel like an outsider. He knew that he was a lonely child, and years later he would become a very lonely adult because of the secret. Dumbledore knew the risk of hiring him. Everyone would know that Remus was a werewolf, but Dumbledore thought that having him here would help not only benefit Remus, but also benefit Harry too. Remus had no close relationships anymore and no family to return to. Harry, while he made friends at Hogwarts, he had no connection to his mother and father. Having Remus return to teach could help them both bond and find something they were missing in their life. But of course, the DADA curse would not spare Remus, even though he was a great teacher. By the end of the year, Remus would leave on his own, but only because the fact that he was a werewolf did come out, and parents of the students would not be comfortable with that. As I said earlier, Remus's secret had layers. Another secret was born from the fact that he was a werewolf. When Remus was a student, his 3 friends, James, Sirius, and Peter, became unregistered animagus. They did this so Remus wouldn't be lonely during the full moon. He would still have his friends right by his side. The secret of Remus having friends who were unregistered animagus led to his secret being revealed. You see, Sirius's ability to transform without anyone knowing helped him escape Azkaban and make his way into Hogwarts undetected. Severus Snape, who knew Remus's secret, thought that maybe he was helping his old friend Sirius sneak into Hogwarts, the same way Remus used to sneak out to transform. This would lead to a whole mess of events happening. As a transformed dog, Sirius captured Ron and his pet rat and took them to the Shrieking Shack. It was revealed that Peter Pettigrew was living transformed as a rat for several years with the Weasleys. Peter was the one who portrayed Lily and James Potter. Sirius was innocent. However, Snape thought he had caught his childhood bully and would be able to put him back in Azkaban. Remus forgot to take his wolfbane potion that night and transformed with the mind of a wolf instead of his own. Harry thinks he sees his father, but it isn't his father. It was him using a time turner. Oh, and Harry and Hermione save a hippogriff named Buckbeak from being executed, which Sirius flies away on to escape from the minister, who also wants to send him back to Azkaban. So to make it simple, the curse revealed that Remus was a werewolf, but also revealed James's secret that he changed secret keepers, Peter betrayed his friends and gave up the Potter's location, and that Sirius was innocent all along. While the curse usually does more harm than good, I think it worked out for Remus in the end. He got his friend Sirius back in his life and formed a bond with the son of the two good friends who were no longer around. In Harry's fourth year, the DADA professor was supposed to be Mad Eye Moody, but it was actually Barty Crouch Jr., who was under the illusion of Polyjuice Potion. During his time at Hogwarts, Barty Jr. achieved 12 OWLs, which meant he was a rather gifted student. However, these gifts would turn dark due to his association with Death Eaters. After Voldemort first fell, he and a handful of other Death Eaters searched for their master. He and the Lestranges tortured Alice and Frank Longbottom for information. This led to a trial, which he begged and pleaded his father that he wasn't involved. However, his father, Barty Crouch Sr., head of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, condemned him. Barty Jr. and the three Lestranges were all sent to Azkaban. Around the age of 19, Barty Jr. was given a life sentence. When he first arrived, he spent days crying for his mother, but it didn't last too long with the effect of the Dementors looming around. Barty's mother would fall ill, and as a dying wish, she wanted to see her son. Since his father was high-ranking in the ministry, they were allowed to visit him. However, her dying wish wasn't just to see her son. It was much more than that. She wanted to smuggle her son out. Barty Crouch Sr. would go along with his plan. Mrs. Crouch would drink some Polyjuice Potion and swap places with him. With the use of the potion and the fact that the Dementors were blind, her plan worked. Her son was free, and she would die in Azkaban and be buried there so no one would ever know. Back at home with his father, Barty Jr. would be nursed back to health by their house elf, Winky. But as soon as he was well enough, he wanted to continue his search for Voldemort. Barty Crouch Sr., filled with grief and guilt, would try whatever he could to subjugate his son, keeping him secret and not allowing him to leave. He would even hit him with the Imperious Curse and keep him under an invisibility cloak to keep him hidden. However, one day, Bertha Jarkins came by with some paperwork for Barty Crouch Sr. to sign. She saw Winky talking to someone she couldn't see. Barty Crouch Sr. hit her with a powerful memory charm that caused some brain damage. Shortly after this visit, Peter Pettigrew found Bertha and brought her along in his search for Voldemort, hoping that she would have valuable information for him. Bertha Jorkin had information that Voldemort could extract, even with the damage of the memory charm. They would learn that Barty Jr. was alive and out of Azkaban, and that the Tri-Wizard Tournament would be happening at Hogwarts this year. Voldemort would dispose of her, and a plan was put into motion. There was almost a hiccup in the plan when Barty Crouch Sr. was convinced by Winky to allow his son to attend the Quidditch World Cup. Barty Jr. would break free of the Imperious Curse and bring chaos after the World Cup. Barty Sr. would find his son, place the curse back on him, and take him home. If Barty Jr. had been found by the Ministry that night, things might have gone differently during the Second Wizarding War. Voldemort and Pettigrew would go to the Crouch's home and find him there. He would be free to help his Dark Lord now. A plan was set into motion. They would kidnap Moody from his home and hold him inside of a magical trunk. Barty Jr. would use Moody's hair to make a Polyjuice Potion and become the DADA teacher in disguise. He would put Harry's name into the Goblet of Fire under a fake school's name, guaranteeing his name would get picked. Then he would help make sure Harry does well enough to get to the third task and find the Tri-Wizard Cup. The cup was turned into a portkey that could transport Harry to a graveyard where he would be used to bring Voldemort back to power in his new body. Before going into Barty Crouch Jr.'s secret, let's take a look at Alistair Moody for a second. He was supposed to be the professor this year, but didn't actually teach. So was he affected by the curse? I think he was. We know that Arthur Weasley was called out to his house after an incident happened. The story goes that Moody heard an intruder break into his home and started jinxing everything in sight. Even a group of policemen showed up with all the noise. So they needed Arthur's help getting him a lesser charge than possibly overreacting to a cat or something. Charlie Weasley made a comment that Moody had gotten pretty paranoid in his old age. He didn't trust anyone and sees dark wizards everywhere. So what was Moody's secret that made it so he didn't last more than a year or even a day as the DADA professor? His secret was that he developed a fear that someone would come for him as a retired Auror, and that's precisely what happens to him. I'm sure he knew of the curse when he took the job, but was willing to risk it. Maybe he didn't think that he had any secrets to hide or that anything bad would happen to him. Either way, I think the curse still got Moody, even though he didn't even teach a single class. Now back to Barty Crouch Jr. Barty Jr. had a secret that he didn't want to be revealed. Actually, he had two secrets. One, he escaped from Azkaban with the help of his father, and two, he was playing out Voldemort's master plan to bring him back to power. The plan was going pretty well up until Harry was able to make it back to Hogwarts from Voldemort's resurrection in the graveyard. Before this point, you might have even wondered if Voldemort lifted the curse for Barty Crouch Jr. because it was going so well. But he didn't, so the curse would still come for him. Dumbledore asked Harry to stay put. There were a lot of things going on, very sensitive things that Dumbledore needed sorting out. But Barty Jr. just had to take Harry away. He needed to know if the plan had worked and if Voldemort was indeed back. Then he starts to reveal everything to Harry, but he doesn't say his real name. That's when Dumbledore breaks down the door and knocks out fake Moody. They dose him with truth serum, and all the secrets poured out. In the end, the truth comes out, he gets the Dementor's kiss, and the DADA curse takes another victim. In Harry's 5th year, the DADA professor was Dolores Umbridge. Dolores was born to a wizard father and a muggle mother. She also had a younger brother who was a squib. Life at home was not a happy place, and eventually the family would split into two. Dolores would stay with her father, Orford, and her brother would stay with her muggle mother, Ellen. Dolores secretly despised both of her parents. She thought her father was unambitious. He worked at the ministry in the magical maintenance department and had never been promoted. And as for her mother, she found her flighty and untidy and blamed her for her brother's lack of magical abilities. After the family split, Dolores never saw her mother or brother again, which was just fine with her because now she could pretend she was a pureblood. Directly after graduating from Hogwarts, she entered in the ministry's improper use of magic office. Even as young as she was judgmental and ruthless, but still smiled sweetly when dealing with her superiors. She would steal credit of work others had completed, which helped her advance in her career. As Dolores continued to grow in her career, she convinced her father to take an early retirement and gave him an allowance to keep him afloat. She didn't want to be associated with a man who mopped the floors and would start saying her father was deceased, but when he was alive, he was a distinguished member of the Wizengamot. People would end up going along with their stories as nasty things would happen to those who didn't. Dolores searched for someone to marry, but never found anyone willing. She didn't really care for anyone in particular. She just knew that if she could marry someone important, it would further her ambitions. While she was valued for her hard work, others didn't really like her personally. After a glass of sherry, Dolores would end up spouting her uncharitable views on those she thought were less than. Even those with anti-Muggle views were shocked by the things she would say. Dolores would continue to grow in her career when she noticed that Cornelius Fudge, Minister for Magic, became increasingly anxious and paranoid that Dumbledore would supersede him. She jumped at the chance for more power. She fed Fudge's vanity and fear, and Dolores became one of the few he could trust. This is when she would be appointed as the new DADA professor and inquisitor at Hogwarts. Hogwarts was not one of her favorite pastimes, as she was often overlooked for any position of responsibility. But now she returns with all the power she ever wanted. Her prejudices and cruelty could run free if she wanted them to. She could wield power over those who had not given her her due, control or banish those she saw as less than, and punish anyone who tried to challenge her. Needless to say, things didn't go the way she had hoped they would. It's pretty clear what Dolores' secrets were. Dumbledore for sure would have known them, but the Ministry appointed her, not Dumbledore. By not finding a teacher before the school year starts, the Ministry can appoint someone to an open position. So did Dumbledore know that Dolores would be the one? I think so. He has many friends and spies within the Ministry, and he would have known that Dolores placed herself in a position where her name would come up for the job. Why he would be okay with Dolores as a teacher comes down to Dumbledore's master plan for Harry, which I'll dive into at some point in another video series. Bringing it back to secrets, Dolores was that she was a fraud, similar to Lockhart. She tried to rewrite her own history to seem like someone else. There was no way she had a muggle mother and a squib brother, and of course her father was a decorated wizard. Also, she was a terrible bigot. Some people knew this because she would let it slip when drinking, but typically she tried to keep that well hidden. With someone as awful as Dolores Umbridge, you kind of wish that the curse took her away sooner, but typically the curse likes a slow burn. Still, in the end, she would no longer be employed by Hogwarts and was sent to St. Mungo's Hospital for some time. At first, little things were happening in the school, with students and professors testing her power and authority. She would try to counteract their moves, but her sweet smiles wouldn't work on those at Hogwarts. Then, Hermione Granger came up with the idea to form their own Defense Against the Dark Arts group. That's right, Dolores, a muggle-born witch helped create a group to defy you. The students started to become stronger and learn the truth about what was going on in the wizarding world, something that Dolores was trying to help cover up. In the end, it was Hermione, a muggle-born witch, who tricked Dolores into the Forbidden Forest. They came upon a group of 50 or so centaurs in the forest. Dolores made the mistake of calling them half-breeds, said they had near-human intelligence, and just to try to fit one more punch in, she called them filthy half-breeds, even though she knew they didn't like being called half-breeds in the first place. After completely angering all of the centaurs, she tried to shoot spells at them, but of course, she was overpowered and dragged deeper into the forest. So to recap, Umbridge's secret, she was a fraud and a bigot. The curse made it very clear to all the students and professors that she was not as powerful or influential as she thought she was. Also, it would probably get back to the Ministry that she was having troubles controlling what was going on in Hogwarts. Then she got tricked and literally dragged away by those she thought of as less than her. To top things off, her being dragged off allowed Harry and fellow Dumbledore Army members to go to the Ministry, where a battle would break out, and it is exposed to Fudge that Voldemort is truly back, which was something Umbridge was reassuring Fudge couldn't be true. Honestly, she probably deserved worse than she got. I can completely understand why some people hate her more than Voldemort. In Harry's 6th year, the DADA professor was Severus Snape. Severus was born to a muggle father and a witch mother. His parents did not create a happy household, and he could not wait to get to Hogwarts. One day, while Severus was out and about town, he spotted a girl who looked the same age as him. After watching her, he noticed that she had magical abilities just like him. This girl was Lily Evans, and the two became good friends. While traveling to Hogwarts for the first time, they shared a compartment on the Hogwarts Express. They were also paired up with James Potter and Sirius Black. There was a conversation about houses that led to James and Sirius poking fun at Severus. Lily would sit up and tell Severus that they should find another compartment together to keep it from going any further. At the sorting ceremony, Severus would be placed in Slytherin, and Lily would go to Gryffindor. The two boys who were making fun of him on the train would also be sorted into Gryffindor with Lily. During their time at Hogwarts, Severus and Lily's once good friendship would become fractured. Severus would become friends with other Slytherin students that Lily didn't care for, and while she stood up for him for a while, once in a fit of embarrassment and rage, Severus did the unthinkable. He called Lily a mudblood. This was unforgivable, and the two faded apart. Outside of the future Death Eaters he becomes friends with, and once close relationship with Lily, Severus didn't have an easy time with others at Hogwarts. The two boys from the train on his very first day continued to bully him for years. James and Sirius, along with two other Gryffindor students, Remus Lupin and Peter Pettigrew, made his time at Hogwarts rough. Severus tried to keep tabs on the four to stay one step ahead. One day, he noticed that Remus was disappearing roughly once a month during full moons. He had a theory that Remus might be a werewolf. Sirius was going to play a cruel joke on Severus by leading him to a secret passage from the Whomping Willow to the Shrieking Shack, where the transformed Remus was holding out until daybreak. Knowing that this prank was going too far, James stopped Severus before he made it to the shack. This is when Albus Dumbledore, Hogwarts headmaster, made Severus swear he would not speak a word of what happened and what Remus was. Despite having a hard time, Severus was still very talented. As a student, he created several of his own spells. While this sometimes backfired on him, like James using his spell Levi Corpus against him, he kept creating and writing his notes in his schoolbooks. As time went on, he would in fact join Voldemort and become one of his Death Eaters. One day, while in the Hogshead Inn, he overheard Sybil Trelawney having an interview with Albus Dumbledore. She wanted to become the new divination professor at Hogwarts. The interview wasn't going well until she unknowingly began to speak prophecy about someone who could bring down Voldemort. Aberforth Dumbledore, the owner of the Hogshead, threw Severus out for eavesdropping before he heard the entire prophecy. What he had heard, he would bring back to Voldemort. This is when the search for the Chosen One would begin. Eventually, he landed on the idea that it was going to be Harry Potter, the son of his once good friend Lily and his school bully James. Even after their friendship fell apart and it had been years since they had spoke, Severus still cared deeply for Lily. He would even ask Voldemort to spare her life during the pursuit to kill the Chosen One. Knowing that asking him wasn't the best defense to save her, he would call on Albus Dumbledore. He would plead with him to hide Lily and protect her. Hide all three of them if he must. Just make sure that she will be okay. Sadly, these efforts did not save Lily, but Harry would survive. Severus would end up going to work for Dumbledore at Hogwarts as a professor. He was interested in the post of the Defense Against the Dark Arts, but Dumbledore would not allow him to, so he taught potions. Some believed it was his fear that he would fall into the dark arts again, but he was trying to spare him from the DADA curse. Several years later, Dumbledore had a curse placed on his hand by a Horcrux. Severus tried to slow it down as much as he could, but he knew that it was going to be fatal. It was at this point in time that Severus would become the DADA professor. Dumbledore had a plan, and he knew that things wouldn't be easy for him, and he wouldn't be a professor for much longer. Severus had several secrets, but only one was revealed during his time as the DADA professor. The secret that came out was only told to one person, and that was Dumbledore. He let Dumbledore know that he still loved Lily. He always had. He loved her when they were children, when their friendship faded, when she married his school bully, and he continued to love her even after her death. It was this love that motivated him to work for Dumbledore, to be a double agent, to protect Harry, and when the time comes, to kill Dumbledore, which would secure his position on Voldemort's side while he worked to take him down and win the war against Lily's killer. I can't say for sure if he was trying to make Lily proud, honor her memory, or in a way ask for forgiveness for his childhood mistakes and for revealing to Voldemort part of the prophecy that led to her death. But what I can say is that until the very end, Severus Snape loved Lily Evans. Would Severus have killed Dumbledore if he wasn't the DADA professor? Of course, like I said, he was doing it all for Lily. However, he wouldn't have told Dumbledore that he was still in love with Lily if he was still the potions master. No curse, no secrets revealed. Dumbledore knew, no matter what position Severus was in, he was not going to stay professor with what he was asking him to do. So putting him in a cursed position made sense. Snape was already going to lose his job, so why curse and lose another fighter for the good side by giving someone else the position? In letting Snape be cursed and having his secret revealed, we get one of the most iconic lines in this series.
After all this time? Always.
It also let Dumbledore know that even after he's gone, he will make sure that Harry will win the war. This is probably another reason he wanted Severus to be the DADA professor. He wanted to know any secrets that he had to ensure that he could trust him to continue on after he was gone. So, to sum it up, Severus was only the DADA professor for a year because he killed Dumbledore, and he did that all because he loved Lily, which he ended up revealing to Dumbledore. In what would have been Harry's 7th year, the DADA professor was a Death Eater, Amicus Carrow. However, this time around, instead of teaching defensive spells, it was just straight up dark arts. We don't know much about Amicus's background, but we do know that he was a Death Eater during the First Wizarding War. It is believed that he and his sister Alecto did not search for Voldemort after his downfall in 1981. Both of them managed to escape being imprisoned in Azkaban for their crimes and support of Voldemort. When Voldemort returns years later, both the Carrows join his side once more. They were even appointed to be with Draco when the break-in at Hogwarts happens. This makes it seem like they were either trusted or ruthless enough to attack anyone who gets in their way. Perhaps both. After Dumbledore's death and the Death Eaters take over the Ministry, the Carrows were both appointed positions as teachers at Hogwarts. Amicus would even teach the unforgivable curses and would have students use them on other students as punishment. However, those still at Hogwarts didn't make it easy for them. Yes, Amicus and his sister were downright evil in how they treated the students, but Neville and the reformed Dumbledore's army made sure they knew they still had hope, and it was just a matter of time before their downfall. Harry would come back to Hogwarts during his Horcrux hunt. He needed to find Ravenclaw's lost diadem, hidden in the walls. The Carrows got word that Harry might try to sneak into Ravenclaw's tower, and they were stationed there. Electra spots Harry and Luna and touches her dark mark to let Voldemort know. However, she would be stunned by Luna. Amicus would demand McGonagall to let him into the tower to check on his sister. He thought that he could pass it off as one of the students playing a joke, that they knocked out his sister and pressed the mark. After a bit of chaos breaks out, Amicus and his sister were both captured in a net that hung from the ceiling. So what was Amicus' secret? Well, that he was a Death Eater the whole time. The secret was exposed the moment he took the job since Death Eaters had taken over Hogwarts. He should have been in Azkaban this entire time, but was able to keep the information that he was a follower of Voldemort a secret. As the Second Wizarding War was on the rise and it seemed like the darkness might take over, Amicus and his sister would join Voldemort's side again. They were even entrusted to unknowingly protect a Horcrux. Since Voldemort lost the war, it was pretty clear that Amicus would lose a job at Hogwarts as the DADA, or rather Dark Arts, teacher. Not only did he lose his job, but he would end up in Azkaban, where he should have been in the first place. After the defeat of Voldemort, the curse on the position was lifted. Hogwarts could finally have a regular professor that could return year after year and provide a proper education to the students. I do believe curses can outlast the one who cast it, but since the curse was to expose anyone who took the job until Tom Riddle was considered for it, the curse broke. Tom Riddle could no longer have the job since he died in battle. He couldn't even come back to teach as a ghost like Professor Binns because he damaged his soul so much by creating all of his Horcruxes that he couldn't come back as a ghost, even if he wanted to. I don't know the exact number of professors that the curse took out before it was lifted, but we do know a few during Harry's time at Hogwarts. Their secrets were exposed, and some ended up worse for wear for taking the job, while others like Lupin I think gained more than lost by being exposed. What do you think about the DADA curse? Would you have taken the job if it was offered to you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for listening to The Secret about the DADA curse. If you enjoyed this video and want to support the channel, please consider giving a like and a comment. You can also subscribe for more videos. I'll be back again soon with another video, but until then, keep enjoying the magic.